Greetings, everyone, and thanks for checking out our latest video featuring our good friends at Practice Protect. Practice Protect is an amazing tool that's helping accounting firms all over the world secure their technology and keep their client data safe. We've got our good friend Jon all the way digitally from Australia, and really excited to share with our clients the cool stuff that you guys are doing.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Micah. Thanks for having me on, and thanks everyone for taking the time today to watch this.
Yeah, right on. Well, let's jump right in. Why are firms talking about cybersecurity, Jon?
Yeah, great question. I guess firms are talking about cybersecurity because of issues on two levels. So you're seeing there's global security issues and more local levels. So starting with a global level, not really a day goes by where we're hearing about cybersecurity threats and alerts. Okay, it's in the news all of the time, and it's so prevalent at the moment. But the White House actually issued a statement just last month talking about the threats around cybersecurity and the need for small businesses to protect themselves in the wake of more advanced threats. Also, you hear about large companies being hit by ransomware. There are some really large, high-profile incidents which are making the news. So that's kind of happening at a global level. We're seeing that in the news all the time. But then also on a local level, it's the smaller businesses that are being hit, and it's actually smaller businesses which are being hit more often than larger businesses. Okay, and so at a local level, accounting firms are seeing that they're seeing their peers maybe hit by ransomware. They're seeing emails being sent out which are clearly scam emails. So all of that is just adding up to the talk. Okay, it's something which firms are seeing happening more and more.
Yeah. How else has the landscape changed for small firms and for small businesses?
Yeah, great. There's a couple of major changes. So firstly, with the change in technology and the kind of tech which firms are using. Okay, so firms are now shifting away from, the physical server, local server with all of their data stored in that, to working in an online environment, working on the cloud. Now, we're a cloud company, we love the cloud. We do recommend it, and if it's managed in the right way, then it is far more secure than working on a local server. It's definitely the way
Hmm.
forward and what we recommend. But as well, it's something to consider. Okay, because like working in a new environment obviously means that there's new risks and there's new areas to address. So that's like one area which is changing.
Sure.
And
It reminds me of conversations I had with firms early on about, the physical security side that we've always kind of taken for granted. But someone could, kick down a door and go into the server room and grab the server and leave, and that's it. Like they've got all the data. And the cloud, right, it's secured by a data center that sometimes even has an armed guard, but is 24-hour monitoring and things like that. Just kind of a crazy thought that this thought that if I put stuff in the cloud, I'm somehow less secure, but there's quite a bit more opportunity to be secure there, right?
mm, yeah, yeah, 100%. And I think it's just about changing that perception because people, we had the old-fashioned perception of your security, and you had your bubble in the office, and everything was safe within that bubble. You had your server in the corner there; you could
Hmm.
see it. Okay,
Yeah.
so now things that people are working online. Like I said, it is more secure as long as you're managing it in the correct way. Um,
Right.
but um, but yeah, it's just required a shift. But on top of that as well, the other risk, well, if I'm talking about the office bubble, is now firms are working remotely. Okay, so there's been a
Hmm.
huge shift to work from home and a hybrid working model. And, obviously that was brought on by the events of the last couple of years. But what we're seeing now is that hybrid working is here to stay. Okay,
Hmm.
most companies now are offering work from home full time in at least some capacity. So whether that's one
Right.
day a week, 2 days a week.
Yeah.
So what that means as well is it's great. It offers people more flexibility, but again, it's just another area to consider. Okay, so when you're looking at
Hmm.
your security, you're not just looking in your office. You also need to think about people's home office setups, their personal devices if they're using them.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Which I guess kind of brings up the question about regulations too. So what regulations around cybersecurity do firms need to be aware of?
Yeah, yeah, great question, and it's something which is changing and evolving, And it looks like as we're looking ahead to the future, there's only going to be more and more regulations in this
Right.
area. So to start
Funny,
off with,
funny how that is always the direction, more, not less, right? That's Is that the
yes,
IRS
sadly,
way, I think?
yeah, I think it is. Um, so I guess like it's started off, and this has been around for a couple of years, for IRS 4557 guidelines,
Hmm.
safeguarding taxpayer data. So these guidelines set out the steps uh, which tax practitioners should follow to be securing their clients' data. So this sets out steps and areas for firms to address. Okay, so from regards to password management, antivirus, backups, it's all set out in there with their best practice guidelines. It is
Hmm.
quite a hefty, quite a long document, but if you read through it, it is full of common sense and some really good practical tips. So it's as far as guidelines and legislation goes, it's definitely one of the more practical ones I've ever read, which is great.
Yeah, yeah, I've thought the same. But what are some of the things that should be in that plan? What should firms put in their data security plan?
Yeah, great question.
Maybe
Because
that may be too broad of a question to answer in a short period
yeah,
of time, but like, what are some of the high level things?
yeah. Well, that's a good question because that's part of the guidelines. So the guidelines say that firms should have a data security plan in place, and that's something which
Hmm.
we're seeing being reinforced. So it was last year the IRS they made a change to the Form W12 on the PTIN application, where firms had to tick off to say yes, I have a data security plan in place. So this is something which now they are looking to enforce for firms.
Yeah.
So when you're looking, so sorry, just to jump back and answer your question, when you're looking at a data security plan, the areas that you want it to cover is, there's a multitude of areas, but essentially what you want it to say is your approach to securing your data. Okay, so there's actually some templates you can follow. We've got a template online which firms can use, which sets out the dot points, but it's about assessing essentially where your data sits, who's accessing it, how it's being accessed, and setting out guidelines for it.
Sure. Great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm dying to know, how does Practice Protect fit into all of this equation? What pieces of that security plan can Practice Protect help out with?
Yeah. Yeah, great. So if we bring up a slide, because with Practice Protect, this is an area where we help firms. Okay, so the whole idea of what we do is it's holistic security, and we're addressing the three different areas: so tech, team, and compliance for firms. Okay,
Hmm.
so if we jump ahead, probably to slide 5, what we've boiled down when we're looking at cybersecurity. These are the areas, for firms to address, and Practice Protect helps
Hmm.
in all of these areas. Okay, so firstly, when you're looking at security, you need to address the tech. Okay, so you need to put
Hmm.
technical solutions in place to secure your data. Okay, and also as well, when you're putting these technical solutions in place, it's not about putting barriers in place for your team. Okay, people will always do what's easiest for them. Okay, so when you're putting security in place, it needs to be convenient and easy as well. Okay, because if you put lots of hoops through for people to put lots of obstacles in place, people will try to circumnavigate it. They'll try to work outside of the system. So you want to
Hmm.
use tech to make it easy for people to do the right thing.
Right.
Secondly, it's all about the team, okay, and training your team, okay, because you could put the best technical solutions in place in the world, but if your team are clicking
Hmm.
on every phishing email they receive, something bad's going to happen pretty quick. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's another area where we help firms. We provide cybersecurity training so that your team know what not to do online.
Hmm.
And the last one is compliance. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, there's lots of legislation. There's only going to be more. They're also looking at introducing safe harbor laws in certain states. So the compliance burden on firms is only increasing.
Hmm.
And that's another area where we then help. So we actually provide the guidelines. We provide policy documents for our firms to be compliant with the different legislation.
So, John, one of the things that I love about, say, Office 365 is you can set two-factor authentication to always be required, and only an administrator can turn that setting off, which guarantees you that none of your users will inadvertently or intentionally turn off two-factor authentication, which is a critical piece. Um, how does Practice Protect kind of answer that problem, which is you want to take the power away from the users to do something dumb.
Yeah. Great question. Because that ties back to the point that people will always do what's easiest for them. Okay, so the idea
Right.
is that you need to set up the system so that people are behaving in a secure way, and it's the way in which they have to act. And there's not an option. There's not an option around two-factor authentication. There's not an option around security. They have to work from within the platform. So, Michael, what I'll do is I'll share my screen and I'll just give a quick demo on Practice Protect if that's all right, and just show
Yeah,
how we
perfect.
help in this area.
A
Yeah,
picture
awesome.
is worth 1,000 words, especially for
Exactly.
folks like myself who are surprisingly not all that technical. Don't
Yeah,
talk
and
about
I'm.
me.
That's great. Okay, so I'll just share my screen here so you can see Practice Protect up here. So the idea with our platform is that, and the technical element of it is that we're securing your password, securing your team members' logins. Okay, so the idea is that you and the team, you don't need to know what your passwords are. Okay, I've lost count of the amount of firms that I've spoken to that have had passwords in a book, that have saved them in Google Chrome or in a spreadsheet. The idea of Practice Protect is you can get rid of that and store them somewhere secure. Okay, so the idea, say, is if I click on 0, Practice Protect has stored my username and password so that then it takes me through and it logs me in automatically.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And the idea then is like this isn't just done for you, it's for your team as well.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So it's not your team that have that control over passwords. So going back to your
Yeah.
earlier point, Micah, it's similar to Office 365, okay? It's something which
Hmm.
you'd set up as the admin so that when
Yep.
your team start, you just give them this one login and they're good to go. They're ready
They've
to
got
go. They
all
don't
these
have to.
buttons to click on, and they're already set up, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you don't have to worry
Brilliant.
about pets' names for passwords, anything like that.
When we were
Okay.
first starting out in the IT world, Tech Guru, we did a lot of on-site work because back in the day there wasn't remote access like there is now, and I can't tell you how many times I needed a password and I just looked underneath the keyboard and it was there
Hmm.
on a sticky note.
Yeah.
It's kind of like keeping the keys above the sun visor in the
Yeah,
car.
yeah. Well, that's the idea. And before working at Practice Protect, I'll be honest, I was one of those people that had the same password for everything.
Yeah.
Okay, and it wasn't quite John 1 2 3 4, but it wasn't the best password. So
Well, 10 years ago, that was okay, right? Like we didn't really have the issue that we have now where everything is online and anybody anywhere in the world can try and log in if they have your password. Before you had
mm,
a password for like what, your computer, maybe your
mm,
email, but you didn't, it was plugged into Outlook and you didn't have to really ever enter it anywhere. So like picking passwords just wasn't a thing 5+ years ago. But now it's the number one way that people breach systems, right?
yeah.
They'll fish a password from somebody, and since they don't ever have to type in the password, they can't give up a password they don't know, right?
Exactly. That's the idea. And as well, just building on that is because we just work with accounting firms, we know that it's not only your passwords, it's all of your clients' passwords as well. And that's a large part of what we do and what we help to secure. Okay,
Mm,
so if I just scroll down and I'll show you this on Practice Protect, the idea here is that with your setup, you can set up all of your client logins. Okay,
mm,
because we brought on a firm. I think it might actually be a mutual client. It's a Tech Guru client, Micah, a
mm.
5-user firm, and they had over 500 different logins.
Yeah,
Okay, so
I
there
think
was
I know what you're
only
talking
about
about. It's
yeah,
impressive.
only yeah. I think the firm themselves only used 10, and then 490 were their clients'
Mhm.
logins.
Yeah.
Okay, so the idea then is that your team can log on to the client's Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, whatever banking it is, but they don't need to know what the passwords are. Okay, so
Mhm.
you're able to give your team access to client apps without handing over the keys.
Yeah. So when one
Another,
employee leaves or is terminated, you don't have to go and change 500 passwords to make sure they've
yeah,
been locked out, right?
well, that's it. Yeah, and you don't have the stress that they still know what the client's passwords are, because often with
Mhm.
the firms we work with, they're actually using the client's logins. So they
Yeah.
might not have advisor access, they're using the client's one, and
Right.
they don't want to hand that over to the team members.
Yeah, and
As
this is
well,
the great thing to be able to tell your clients that you have this tool in place. When they give you a password, right? You say, even if one of our employees leaves, we can cut off their access because we've got this tool.
exactly. And as well, on top of that, everything's tracked and monitored. Okay,
Mm,
so because you've got that shared access. If there's suspicious activity on a certain account, you're not able to, without any tracking, you don't know who it was. It could have been one of 5, 10, 15 team members. With Practice
Mhm.
Protect, you know who's accessed it. So we've got our activity log. So this is it for me personally, but there is a view for the whole firm. So you can
Yeah.
see who's logging into what, who's accessing the application. And we've actually been involved in incidents like that. Okay, so there have been suspicious incidents on bank accounts. We've been able to use our reporting to pinpoint who logged into it at that time, and then the firms were able to deal with it internally.
Nice.
Yeah. So as well, just one other area. I mean, I could talk about this all day, and there is a lot more security restrictions that we set up. So, for instance, we've got the two-factor authentication, we've got location restrictions. There's a lot of control around how team members can log on, where and when they can log on from. But like I said, I don't want to keep talking about this this section for too long. But
No,
one
this
other
this
area.
is really, really helpful, though, I think, to see a visual representation of what it does and how it streamlines the process. And I think another piece that's kind of maybe, discounted is how many hours a year do you mistype a password or have to reset a password because you forgot
Hmm.
it and all of that. That's something I've noticed using password management tool is that I I mean, I never fat finger a password anymore, and that actually was kind of a significant thing that I would run into over the course of a
Yeah.
year. So,
Yeah, great. And the last thing I wanted to show is the Practice Protect University. Okay, so as I spoke about earlier, when it comes to security, there's 3 areas to address: tech, and then team, and compliance. So the platform we just looked at here is addressing the technical solutions, the technical risk of password management, but then also you need to make sure you've trained your team and you've got the
mm,
policy documents in place.
sure.
So our university is client only, so it's only available to users of the platform. And what you've got in here is all of our cybersecurity training documentation and policy documents. So,
Mm.
for instance, we've got different cybersecurity training videos here. So, we've got a large catalog of videos. So, you can cancel your Netflix subscription and just spend your days eating popcorn and brushing up on cybersecurity. We've
Mm,
also got other guides in here as well. So, we've got checklists, one pages for firms to use.
mm,
So, for instance, there's some on email security, offshoring best practices.
sure.
So that's a large part of what we do. So as I said, your team know what not to do online. And then we also help with the compliance. Okay, because as I said, there's lots of legislation. There's only
Yeah,
going to be more and more legislation. It is moving in that direction. So we're just trying to make it really easy for the firms that we work with to tick that box. Okay,
brilliant.
so you can see here, these documents are all specific for the US firms that we work with. We've got 6 documents in total, which were written up by our partner law firm, the attorneys we work with. And I'll just highlight one here, which is the data security plan. Okay, so this is the plan which was referenced in the IRS
Yeah,
legislations. It's the one which is asked for in Form W12 of the PTIN, and it's here and it's available for our clients to use. So the idea with it is that it's basically plug and play. So the idea is with firms, they can come in, just update the sections in yellow. Obviously, you'll need to customize it a bit for your firm, but then it's good to go, and then you guys will be compliant with that legislation.
wow, nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, John, for taking time to speak with us about Practice Protect and all of these super important things. I know that there's going to be a ton of interest from our clients and our other friends in the industry. Is there a special offer or a website that they should visit to learn more?
Yeah, definitely. So if anyone heads to practiceprotect.com/techguru, you can find out a bit more information about the partnership with us and Tech Guru, and then also booking a time for a demo if you'd like to learn more. And anyone that books in a demo through that code would get $100 off the onboarding.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you again, John. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing you at a conference one of these days, stateside, or maybe if I'm lucky, I'll make it your way.
Yeah, no, thanks, Micah. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.